Hey guys, tonight, we slip into the shadows of jungle temples and fire-lit kitchens deep in the heart of ancient Cambodia. You stand at the edge of the great Khmer Empire, where vines curl around stone lions and the smell of lemongrass hits you before the sunrise does. The air is thick, heavy, and rich with the scents of wood smoke, muddy riverbanks, and something sweet roasting just out of view. You're in a world where food isn't just nourishment, it's sacred, scientific, symbolic, and sometimes suspicious, like that green paste bubbling on the brazier over there. You think it's dessert, you hope. This is the land of Angkor long before tourists and tuk-tuks, when cooks pounded herbs in stone mortars the size of toddlers, and everyone from humble farmers to mighty kings ate with their hands and prayed with their food. You probably won't survive this meal without a stomach of steel, or at least a tolerance for fermented fish paste. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it right now? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle through a dense, tree-canopied path, the kind where moss swallows stone and the air tastes faintly of mint and mildew. Then, like a spell, broken the jungle parts, and you're suddenly in the middle of an Angkorian marketplace. Bright, loud, and steaming. You squint past the haze of charcoal smoke and oil-flecked air. Vendors squat behind banana leaf-covered stalls calling out deals in an ancient tongue. Pots boil, fire pops. Something meaty crackles on a spit. You're not sure if it's pork or lizard. Your nose leads you to a woman grinding something in a stone mortar the size of a tree stump. Her pestle moves rhythmically, mashing turmeric garlic chili and a pinch of mystery leaf. The fragrance hits like a warm slap. This is kroong, the herbal base that gave Khmer cooking its punchy soul. Every family had their own mix passed down like secret recipes, or more often, just by watching grandma with one eye, while pretending not to. Historians still argue whether these market stalls were run by commoners, enslaved war captives, or temple-affiliated cooks. There's not enough written Khmer documentation to settle it, just inscriptions, temple murals, and those suspiciously smug French colonial translations. But whoever sold it, the food spoke a flavor language you don't hear anymore. You sample skewers of river fish roasted in palm bark. It flakes apart like buttery toast. A sprinkle of palm sugar glaze adds sweetness. Then there's roasted banana with black sesame wrapped tight in charred leaf. It's gooey, smoky, and oddly comforting. Somewhere a kid drops a clay bowl and gets shouted at by 5 aunties in unison. You pass a stall where frogs are being dried and salted. Not fried dried. Chewy little protein bricks, perfect for travel. One more table offers roasted eels in sticky tamarind glaze. No refrigeration, no problem, just salt, sun, and patience. Your modern stomach hesitates, but your ancient palate says, go on. And then there are the snacks. Oh yes, snacks were a big deal. Roasted jackfruit seeds with chili powder. Fried silk worm pupae, nutty, a little bitter, weirdly addictive. And something that looks suspiciously like honey-soaked beetles. You pretend you didn't see those. You watch as a kid, barefoot, sticky, delighted, licks a palm sugar lollipop shaped like a naga serpent. His grandmother hands him a second, muttering a prayer over his head. It's both a treat and a tiny blessing. The Khmer didn't just eat for pleasure. Every bite could be protection ritual, a ward against bad spirits. And just when you think you've seen it all, a man at a nearby stall shouts proudly and lifts a huge steaming pot of congee rice porridge Khmer style. Not plain though. It's thick with shredded fish, tamarind leaves, mung beans, and a generous drizzle of tuk tray fermented fish sauce that smells like a sea monster's lunchbox. You try it anyway. It's incredible. Here in the Angkorian market, everything is handmade fresh and sourced from no further than the jungle edge. There's no money in your pocket, but that's fine. Most transactions here are barter. A bowl of rice traded for a woven fish trap. A bundle of turmeric swapped for river snails. Currency hadn't really taken over yet, and food was often the language of exchange. Mainstream archaeology tends to focus on the temples, the inscriptions, the kings. But these markets, they were the real beating heart. Here, women controlled the flow of ingredients, knowledge, and gossip. Recipes shifted subtly by season, by region, by superstition. And always, the mortar stone song of pounding herbs hummed through the air like background music. Even centuries later, modern Khmer chefs still say you can tell the soul of a cook by the sound of her mortar. Is it fast and reckless, too slow and soft? There's an art to it. And here in this imagined stroll through the past, you start to hear it too. The rhythm of a cuisine nearly lost, but not forgotten. You follow the smell of steam and smoke to a quiet edge of the market, where a weathered farmer in a wide-brimmed hat is squatting beside several baskets, each one heaped with rice. But they're not all the same. One pile is short and almost translucent. Another is long grain and golden. And the third is a rich purplish black that glimmers like polished obsidian. You crouch beside him and he grins, waving a hand over the grains like he's showing off fine jewels. You've never seen anyone look so proud of rice, and honestly, he should be. In ancient Khmer life, rice wasn't just a side dish. It was the cornerstone of identity, wealth, religion, and survival. Every field was sacred. Every harvest told a story, and these baskets, they speak volumes. That pearly white variety. It's Phka Rumduol, believed by some modern Khmer to be the fragrant queen of Cambodian rices, possibly descended from grains cultivated near Angkor's moated reservoirs. The black rice that was often used for sweet dishes and rituals, sometimes even dyed red with beetle juice for ceremonial flair. The golden one rumors persist that it grew only in royal paddies tended by women chosen not just for skill, but for perceived spiritual purity. Historians still argue whether rice cultivation in Angkor relied more on seasonal flooding or complex hydraulic engineering, those massive barrays and canal systems. Some claim the whole city functioned like a giant rice machine. Others say that's oversimplifying a network that was likely more fluid, even chaotic. Either way, when the rains came late, everyone noticed. You walk past a small cooking fire where an old woman is preparing sticky rice steamed in bamboo tubes. She opens one with a satisfying crack. Inside, sticky rice, black beans, shavings of young coconut, and a hint of salt. It's humble and exquisite, the kind of dish that needs no throne. Nearby, a group of children help pound rice into flour using foot-treadled mortars, ancient seesaw-style contraptions, powered by tiny bare feet. You watch one kid get distracted, causing a minor flour explosion. Everyone laughs. No one yells. This is everyday joy. Rice in the Khmer world was time. It marked the year, the festivals, the rhythms of birth and death. You didn't just eat rice, you lived it. The royal plowing ceremony each year determined the fate of the kingdom. If the royal oxen favored rice seed over grass, good harvests were foretold. If they refused to eat at all, yikes. And rice wasn't just boiled or steamed. Oh no. It was fermented into wine for rituals, ground into paste for sweets, puffed over fire into crunchy snacks, or made into soft rice noodles that required skilled hands and slippery patience. One fringe theory even suggests that sticky rice may have been used as a kind of ancient construction aid, like glue or mortar for some architectural elements. Is it true? No one can say for sure. But the next time you look at a sandstone carving of a celestial dancer and think, how'd that brick stay in place? Just imagine some rice paste hidden deep in the wall. You move toward a family gathered for lunch under a thatched awning. Their meal is simple rice, river snails, cooked with lemongrass slices of green mango with chili salt, and a bowl of soup so sour it almost makes your eyes water just looking at it. They offer you a bite. You don't say no. That would be rude. As you eat, you notice that no one's rushing. Every spoonful is slow. There's a kind of reverence. Food isn't just fuel, it's rhythm. Even the way they chew seems meditative. You remember how back home you nuked a packet of microwave rice in under 2 minutes and didn't even look at it as you scrolled your phone. You wince a little. This isn't that. This is rice with history. And speaking of history, Khmer mythology is full of rice. Some legends say that rice was a gift from Neang Kamau, a spirit of the earth who nourished the people during times of drought. Other stories link it to Nagas, the sacred serpent beings who taught humans how to plant it in flood seasons. You're not sure which myth is true, but honestly, they all taste better with a little folklore. A passing monk chants softly as he walks the perimeter of the village, and a mother puts a small scoop of rice on a banana leaf, setting it on the path. An offering, for whom may be a wandering spirit, maybe a hungry animal, maybe a memory. In Khmer cosmology, rice connected the living to the dead. Offerings were made not just during festivals, but during normal meals. It was a way of saying, we remember you. Eat with us again. And now so do you. You wipe your fingers on a bit of cloth that smells vaguely like citronella and wander back toward the noisier part of the market. Something catches your eye, a flash of scales, a hiss of steam, and a cart rolling past, wobbling under the weight of, is that crocodile? Yep. A full slab of it tail, and all roasting over a pit on a bamboo spit. You blink. The vendor sees your face and laughs, motioning you over like a proud uncle showing off his barbecue. He slices off a strip and hands it to you on a lotus leaf. You chew. It's surprisingly tender, smoky, a bit gamey but not unpleasant, almost like very determined chicken. In ancient Khmer cuisine, crocodile wasn't everyday fare, but it wasn't shocking either. Along with snakes, turtles, and the occasional monitor lizard crocodiles, were part of a food system that prized adaptability over squeamishness. People ate what lived near them, and in Cambodia, what lived near them sometimes had a lot of teeth. Nearby, a girl walks past, crunching something that sounds like gravel. You realize it's not gravel, it's a cone of candied lotus seeds roasted and glazed in honey, then dusted with ground sesame. She offers you one with the solemn generosity only a child can pull off. It pops in your mouth like a cross between popcorn and hazelnut. Sweet, nutty, just a little floral. The lotus wasn't just sacred, it was edible stem flower, seed pod root. If you were a clever cook in the Khmer world, nothing went to waste. Even the crunchy green seed skins had a culinary afterlife as fire starter stuffing, or sometimes, if you were desperate, a bitter, chewy tea. Historians still argue whether certain street foods were reserved for caste groups, or if it was more of a free-for-all buffet. Some temple engravings suggest rigid social divisions around food, but real-world evidence bits of bone-broken ceramics and charred seeds hint at more overlap than we might assume. You wander toward a shady corner of the market, where a row of grizzled old men are frying something in shallow iron pans. The oil sizzles. The smell hits you like a wave of hot peanuts and caramel. One of them flips a disc out of the pan. It lands on a banana leaf with a soft hiss. It's a palm sugar and rice flour pancake, crisp on the edges, gooey in the middle, and speckled with shreds of dried shrimp. That's right, shrimp and dessert. Khmer cuisine never flinched from mixing sweet and savory, especially in snack form. Another cart offers what look like tiny dumplings made of mashed taro stuffed with coconut and rolled in crushed roasted ants. You stare. The vendor shrugs, like, yeah. So you try one. The ants are tangy. The taro is creamy. You start to understand why no one ever called this cuisine boring. And then there's the green jelly drink. Served in hollowed-out bamboo stalks, it wobbles as you lift it, sloshing with strips of pandan jelly, fermented rice water, and sweetened mung beans. You sip it. Cool, earthy, weirdly refreshing. Like drinking springtime if springtime had a sugar addiction. You begin to see how food in ancient Khmer society was layered texturally, ritually, and socially. A pancake wasn't just a pancake. It might be breakfast, an offering to the water spirits, and a flirtation snack all in one. A lotus seed might start in a monk's begging bowl, then roll its way into a child's sticky fingers by dusk. You pause by a tiny clay oven where a pair of women are roasting something wrapped in charred leaves. They unroll one just enough to give you a peek. Inside, sticky rice stuffed with grilled river prawn and tamarind paste. It smells like wood smoke, citrus, and home. Fringe researchers once proposed that some of these unusual snacks might have been inspired by Ayurvedic influences brought by Indian traders. Others think they were entirely local innovations born of a cuisine shaped more by monsoon cycles than merchant ships. Either way, there's a creativity here that feels timeless. As you snack your way into mild regret, a rooster runs past, followed by a kid with a very determined stick. You step aside just in time. Life here is loud, hot, and slightly chaotic, just like the food. But beneath the chaos is deep intentionality. Every stall has its specialty. Every cook knows what grows in which season. No ingredient is random. And sure, your stomach's getting full, but somehow your curiosity is even more ravenous. By now, the sun has dipped below the treetops. The market lanterns flicker to life, casting gold light over baskets and faces. Somewhere, a flute begins to play, the melody curling through the steam like incense. You watch a vendor pack up for the day, folding lotus leaves around the last few grilled banana dumplings and tying them shut with strips of pandan grass. Before you leave, you buy one and tuck it into your palm. Warm, fragrant, soft at the edges. You don't eat it right away. You hold it for a moment. It feels like a secret, like something sacred. And in a way, it is. The dumpling cools in your hand as you drift from the market into the quieter lanes that thread through the heart of the village. The crowd fades. The chatter turns to murmurs, and the scents of fried things and fermented fish give way to smoke wood and herbs drying on racks. You pass a cluster of clay-walled homes, their courtyards dotted with hanging baskets and bundles of leaves. One small hut has a low table outside, and on it sits a spread of ingredients that would make most modern pantries flinch. There are fermented fish pastes, tiny dried frogs, crushed river crabs, and a pot of something green and bubbling that smells suspiciously like boiled swamp. You lean in, cautiously curious. The woman stirring the pot nods toward it with a smirk. She knows you're not ready. This is the world of prahok, the soul of Khmer seasoning. Prahok isn't subtle. It's loud, funky, ferocious. Made from fermented freshwater fish, typically crushed, salted, then left to age under the sun, it has a smell that announces itself from down the road. And yet, to generations of Khmer cooks, it's essential, not a condiment, a foundation. She lets you taste a smear of it mixed into a dip with lime juice, garlic, chili, and sugar. You brace yourself. It's intense, sour, salty, pungent, and almost electric. But paired with slices of cool cucumber and wedges of young mango, it makes perfect sense. Historians still argue whether prahok's origins predate the Angkor period or evolved alongside trade with coastal neighbors like Champa and Dai Viet. Some think it was purely practical fish preservation in a land without ice. Others say its ceremonial use suggests deeper roots. As you nibble, the woman explains through gestures and laughter that prahok is a matter of pride. Each household's version is a little different, passed down in whispered tweaks and stubborn preferences. It's like an edible family secret. She points to a woven tray where red ants are being sun-dried alongside strips of tamarind bark and bitter eggplant. Another tray holds tiny river snails cooked in lemongrass and pounded into a thick black paste. This is the flavor spectrum that trained Khmer palates sour, bitter, funky, briny. Sweet came last, and never alone. You're offered a cup of herbal broth, brewed from roasted galangal, wild turmeric root, betel leaf, and what might be dried lizard tail. The warmth hits your throat like a whispered incantation. You're not sure what it's curing, but you definitely feel cured of something. Then comes the revelation: leaf-wrapped medicine bundles not to eat but to steam. In ancient kitchens, cooking and healing weren't separate realms. Food was medicine. That bitter broth might treat fever. A mango leaf poultice could be tucked under the tongue for toothaches. Pregnant women drank soups steeped in banana flour and ginger. Kids with coughs chewed roasted tamarind pits. One fringe theory even suggests that Khmer cooks used wild wasp larvae in spicy broths as a fever remedy, though most modern scholars doubt this was widespread. Still, the idea that a pot could be both dinner and prescription was deeply ingrained in the culture. You follow your nose to a fire pit where smoked snakehead fish are hanging like wind chimes, drying to leathery perfection. This fish, ubiquitous in Cambodian rivers, was a staple in nearly every form: grilled, souped, minced, dried, or fermented. Kids carried it to school as a snack. Priests served it to the ancestors. Mothers fried it in sugar and palm vinegar for breakfast. A small boy runs past you with a fistful of fried crickets crunching loudly and offering you one without breaking stride. You try it. It's nutty, earthy, and unexpectedly satisfying. Not something you'll crave at 2 a.m. maybe, but not as horrifying as you imagined. You're starting to understand that Khmer cuisine wasn't about pretty plating or clean forks. It was about extraction, pulling flavor from the land, the river, the forest. If it crawled, swam, wriggled, or fermented, someone found a way to make it delicious, or at least edible. And it wasn't just about hunger. It was about balance. Yin and yang, hot and cold, bitter and sweet. Meals were planned around the body's needs: too much heat. Eat cooling cucumber and basil. Feeling sluggish, add ginger and pepper to stir the blood. Even desserts were judged not just by taste, but by temperature and texture. As night deepens, you pass a shrine with a clay bowl of rice porridge and a stick of incense. A soft offering. Not to a god, but to the Nikta, or ancestral spirit said to live in that banyan tree just behind the shrine. The porridge smells faintly of garlic and fish sauce. Even the spirits like it savory. Your host waves you back over for one last taste: a sour soup made with tamarind leaves, crushed roasted catfish, and long green papaya shreds. It's mouth-puckering and oddly addictive. She grins as you go back for seconds. You thank her clumsily, and she presses a tiny pouch into your hand, dried herbs tied with thread. A kitchen charm, she mimes, for protection, or digestion, or both. You step away from the firelight and into the dark, holding your little pouch, your head swirling with salt and spice and stories. No Michelin stars here, no Instagram filters, just flavor forged in centuries of heat, hunger, and heart. And somehow that feels more nourishing than anything you've had in years. You follow a crooked footpath away from the herb-scented kitchens, brushing past woven baskets and sleepy dogs until it opens into a wide courtyard, moonlit, quiet, and surprisingly elegant. A few steps beyond there, it is a stone platform, low and unadorned, with a clay hearth and cooking pots arranged like a quiet altar. This is a royal kitchen, or at least a recreation of one. The real royal kitchens of the Angkorian court were tucked deep within palace walls, flanked by canals and patrolled by eunuchs and fire tenders. You can't get into those tonight, obviously, but this place, humble as it looks, echoes the same hierarchy of taste. It smells richer here, denser like roasted coconut, and cardamom like ghee slipping into warm rice. Everything is slower, more deliberate. You take a seat on a woven mat, and a young cook approaches with a bowl of something velvety and golden. Pumpkin and duck egg custard steamed inside the pumpkin shell itself, topped with pinches of toasted coconut flakes and crystallized ginger. You take a spoonful. It's absurdly luxurious, sweet, silky, and grounding. The kind of dessert that tells you gently that you are no longer eating peasant food. That's the thing about Khmer cuisine. It wasn't one cuisine at all. It was 1,000 threads. What the farmers ate wasn't what the courtiers tasted, but both shared ingredients, rituals, flavors. The difference was proportion, presentation, and intent. In the royal courts, chefs were ranked. Some cooked only for the king, others for concubines, others for monks, generals, astrologers, and advisors. A handful, truly elite, prepared the sacred dishes served only during coronations or eclipses. One of these was a delicacy so ephemeral, it rarely appears in writing a rice cake made with fresh jasmine extract, wrapped in lotus petals and steamed over coconut water. Historians still argue whether this dish was reserved for queens or for ceremonies honoring fertility deities. Its absence from temple carvings adds to its mystery, like a ghost of flavor too sacred to chisel into stone. Another curious item, cricket fat candies, sugar boiled with the clarified oils from roasted crickets, scented with kaffir lime zest. It sounds like a dare, but it was likely served as a high-protein treat during long ceremonies. And here you are, centuries later, wondering how it would taste. Crispy, citrusy, slightly horrifying. Your host hands you a lacquer tray of royal snacks, slivers of caramelized jackfruit, salt-cured mango slices dusted with chili powder, and pearls of sago and pandan syrup. These would have been served with betel nut chew and tiny cups of green tea scented with chrysanthemum refreshments during court games, poems, or gossip sessions. You glance at a cracked plaque nearby, listing the court titles of kitchen roles. Master of the Coconut Press, Custodian of Fragrant Waters, Chief Boilsmith. All real, all absurdly specific. Imagine job interviews where you're tested not on your resume, but your ability to extract lemongrass oil with ceremonial precision. No pressure. In the shadows beyond the hearth jars sit aging fermented banana blossom vinegar, squid ink, tamarind paste, rice wine smoked with betel bark. Each one labeled in faint old script. These weren't everyday staples. They were gourmet tools called upon like precious instruments in a culinary orchestra. And here's the twist, some royal recipes used ingredients so rare, they were grown only within palace grounds under strict supervision. Pineapple leaf shoots, for example, or white turmeric flowers harvested before dawn. Some fringe scholars speculate that royal cooks even used river pearls ground into broth, not for nutrition, but for symbolic purity. Most mainstream historians call this apocryphal, but you can't help imagining its soup with a shimmer. You're served a final dish steamed eel and wild rice dumplings wrapped in banana leaf and painted with a syrup of lemongrass, tamarind, and charred coconut ash. It's smoky and sweet, grounded by the earthy eel, lifted by the citrus. Not a flavor bomb, but a slow-motion flavor bloom. Royalty didn't rush their taste buds. A musician starts playing softly nearby, maybe a reed flute or a single-stringed trogue. The melody is minor lilting, half a lullaby. It matches the food, delicate, intentional, a little melancholy. You sit back heavy and thoughtful as the last ember in the hearth flutters and dies. For a moment you wonder what it would have been like to be a royal taster trusted with the king's safety in his palate. Every bite a gamble, every spice a potential plot twist. And yet, for all its precision and pomp, this kitchen doesn't feel pretentious. It feels reverent. Like cooking was not just a job, but a language. One you had to speak fluently to show loyalty, respect, maybe even love. You step away from the hearth, ducking beneath a string of herbs drying on a cord. The air outside smells of night and jasmine. The village is mostly asleep now, but your senses, your memory, your appetite are very much awake. The village has grown quieter now, the moon climbing higher, casting silver shadows across the stone footpaths. You drift downhill toward the river, led by the faint sounds of water slapping against canoes and the flicker of torchlight dancing on the surface. Here lies a world that's as important as any palace kitchen, the floating kitchens and stilt house cook fires of the Tonle Sap. This massive freshwater lake, the beating heart of ancient Khmer agriculture and cuisine, dictated not only what people ate, but when and how. The water swelled and shrank with the seasons swallowing farmland in the wet season, then retreating to reveal fertile plains during the dry. And the cuisine, it adapted like a swamp vine, flexible, creative, and a little unhinged. You pass a cluster of narrow boats where women are grilling something over clay braziers, balanced dangerously near the edge of the water. One boat is steaming lotus-wrapped bundles. Another is pounding something with a giant wooden mortar. You get closer. The pounding boat is making samlor kako, a stirred soup beloved in the region, traditionally made with at least 15 different vegetables, wild greens, and something protein-ish tossed in snakehead fish, perhaps, or tree frog if the day's been lucky. You take a sip of a bowl offered to you, watching steam curl into the stars. It tastes like forest floor and lemongrass, like bitter gourd and sweetness fighting each other to a draw. A teenage boy casually offers you a skewer of roasted water beetles dipped in honey and chili flakes. You hesitate. He grins and takes one himself, crunching loudly. You follow. It's oddly like barbecue. A whisper of iodine, a crunch of defiance. The people here don't waste food, not even flavors. Take, for example, the mudfish paste made from fish fermented with burnt rice husks and wild banana stem. It sounds like something you'd dare a frat pledge to eat, but it's actually a prized umami booster smeared on grilled eggplants or stirred into porridge. Historians still argue whether this paste evolved separately from prahok, or if it's just a regional variation, one that didn't get the royal PR treatment. Some even suggest it might have originated from refugee communities who settled after floods, adapting whatever they could scavenge into sustenance. You spot a woman pouring thick white batter into a sizzling griddle pan shaped like half moons. Numb crock, crispy coconut rice cakes. The outside is golden crisped by fire, the inside molten and creamy. She tops them with chopped chives and a pinch of fried shallot. Sweet, savory, yes. Both. You burn your tongue on the first bite and don't regret it. A whisper of ancient trade floats through the smoke rice wine flavored with Indian spices, perhaps clove or cardamom, smuggled down from trade routes via Champa or Funan. The exact path is lost, but the result remains fermented concoctions with flavor fingerprints from far-off lands. One jar you're shown contains something alive, or recently alive. Fermented freshwater shrimp in a brine of wild garlic and young mango sap. It smells like the end of a party and the start of something spiritual. Used sparingly, it's said to wake up the other flavors in a soup. Too much, and it wakes up your neighbors instead. Your guide points to a floating garden nearby a raft of bamboo supporting planters of lemongrass, chili turmeric, and a tiny citrus tree bearing what looks like unripe limes. These mobile gardens float with the family during flood season, ensuring access to flavor even when the land disappears. Their genius a quiet testament to human stubbornness in the face of hydrology. You lean over a canoe to see what's inside a covered clay pot. It's filled with what looks like white cubes in syrup. The woman scooping from it hands you a small bowl. Palm sugar jelly, she says with a nod. Soft, melting cubes made from the boiled sap of the borassus palm, cooled and set like Jell-O before Jell-O was cool. There's a layer of grated coconut on top, and just the faintest touch of sea salt, just enough to make the sweetness sing. The music here isn't flutes or gongs. It's water insects and the low thump of paddle against wood. The cooking is the same low and rhythmic. A daily meditation. You sit with a family on a wooden deck watching them wrap grilled banana in sticky rice, then wrap that in banana leaf, then char the whole thing lightly on a brazier. The outer leaf blackens, but when unwrapped, the rice inside is fragrant and chewy, the banana warm and sweet. It's dessert, yes, but also breakfast, or a travel snack, or an offering to the village spirit. You glance down and notice a tiny crab climbing out of the rice bin. No one bats an eye. Someone gently scoops it up and flicks it into a pan. Circle of life. Before you leave, you're handed a cup of boiled wild ginger tea, earthy and sharp, and a little cloth pouch of dried river herbs, again a kind of kitchen talisman. You're second tonight. You realize that here flavor isn't just food, it's seasonal knowledge, it's geographic intuition, and it's survival. People cook what the water allows when the water allows it, and when it doesn't, they pickle dry ferment and float. The torchlight flickers. The smell of grilled fish clings to your hair. You wonder if your dreams tonight will taste like palm sugar or like fermented crab. Either way, you're ready. By the time you trudge back to dry land, the stars have shifted and the wind carries the scent of ash and flowers. The jungle is close here, wrapping around the edge of the clearing like a dark, living curtain. And behind that curtain lies a different world, the temple kitchens. You duck beneath a carved stone lintel, its surface weathered, but still proud with floral motifs and dancing apsaras. These aren't royal temples, mind you, not the grand corridors of Angkor Wat, but the quieter shrines scattered across the land. Humble, often half swallowed by fig trees, but still sacred and still fed. The first thing you notice, the silence. Temple kitchens didn't run like markets or homes. They were subdued, reverent. Meals were offerings first, nutrition second. A monk in a saffron robe nods as you pass. He's tending a clay stove, gently rotating skewers of grilled eggplant over glowing coals. You sit nearby as he adds a splash of coconut cream, a pinch of dried holy basil, and a whisper of palm sugar. The air grows fragrant with smoke and sweetness, humble and holy all at once. Temple food obeyed spiritual logic. Certain days demanded vegetarian-only offerings, especially during lunar festivals. But that didn't mean boring. In fact, temple cooks were masters of transformation. Take young jackfruit, for example, shredded, simmered in galangal broth, then smoked with dried banana leaf until it mimicked pork so convincingly you'd think karma took a lunch break. You're handed a dish of black, sticky rice porridge rich with coconut milk and chunks of slow-cooked taro. On top, toasted mung beans scattered like blessings. It's earthy, filling, and unexpectedly elegant. A common ritual item, the lotus stem salad, a mix of raw stems, lime juice peanuts, and pickled radish. Some monks believed lotus absorbed negative energy from the body. Whether or not that's true, the dish tastes crisp and cool, like a jungle breeze in edible form. Historians still argue whether temple cuisine originated as a separate tradition, or if it simply borrowed and refined peasant dishes to suit spiritual needs. Some even speculate that early versions of what we now call Buddhist cuisine evolved here in Angkor long before similar ideas appeared in other parts of Asia. You watch a novice grind turmeric root with a heavy stone pestle, his fingers stained golden. He explains shyly that it's for a ritual curry served cold with banana flowers and roasted peanuts. The ingredients must be fresh, the colors bright. After all, you're feeding not just monks, but spirits. No pressure. An elder monk gestures toward a series of earthen jars, each sealed with cloth and twine. Inside, fermented pastes and powders used only for ceremonies dried, tamarind rind, crushed beetle root, a smoked salt blend made from lightning-charred tree bark. Yes, that's a thing. And yes, it's delicious. You take a breath. The air feels thicker here, layered with incense, the whisper of prayers, and the distant creak of bamboo in the wind. A cat weaves through the monk's legs and hops onto a shelf lined with palm leaf manuscripts. Recipes, possibly, or spells, or both. In temple kitchens, the line between cooking and conjuring is very, very blurry. A monk offers you a bite of something wrapped in dried banana peel and steamed into softness. Num ansem check, he murmurs. Sticky rice with banana and black beans served during ceremonies honoring ancestors. As you chew, he smiles and adds, but ours has extra ginger. Helps keep the ghosts polite. You chuckle, but your skin prickles a little. The jungle hush around the temple presses in. You imagine generations of monks preparing meals for the unseen, layering meaning into every pinch of salt. You're invited to help stir a vat of jaggery syrup, thick and bubbling like lava. It's destined to coat fried sesame balls served during full moon vigils. Not too fast, the monk cautions. The syrup listens. Of course it does. Before you leave, you're handed a cup of smoked rice tea, toasted rice steeped in water with lemongrass, and a single tiny pinch of sandalwood ash. The taste is faint, soothing, and just a little dusty, like drinking a memory. You bow, and the monks bow in return. As you step past the shrine gate, your foot brushes a small bowl of food left at the base of a tree. An offering. Something simple, sticky rice, dried mango, a few flower petals. Not meant for you, but for the spirit who guards this patch of forest. The jungle welcomes you back with a chorus of cicadas and a few glinting eyes in the underbrush. You walk a little faster. Still something about the temple food lingers, not just the taste, but the intention. Cooking as devotion. Flavor as philosophy. Recipes you don't write down, but whisper over flames and repeat until your hands remember. You round a bend, and the trees open again to starlight and the smoky haze of distant cook fires, the sacred and the ordinary blur in your mind. Was that a temple meal or just a particularly polite picnic? Either way, you're full. Of food, of questions, of quiet awe, the night is at its softest now. Crickets have taken the stage, and even the frogs are beginning to mumble like tired uncles at the end of a party. You ease downhill once more where the forest thins and the light changes. You smell something unexpected, charcoal cloves and smoke-dried buffalo. Welcome to the old highways. Yes, Khmer highways. And yes, you're about to eat travel food. You didn't think ancient empires just stayed put, did you? Khmer roads stretched hundreds of miles, connecting Angkor to satellite cities and distant provinces. Along these trade routes, travelers, soldiers, and pilgrims needed to eat, and not just jungle leaves or unlucky lizards. There was a whole category of cuisine engineered for movement preservation and low maintenance. Your guide this time is a wiry, sun-browned caravan cook, perched beside a rack of smoke-dried sausages. He nods as you approach and points with pride to strips of meat hanging over a fire. This one's sach ko on dried beef with palm sugar and wild pepper, he says. This one's buffalo soaked in brine and smoked in lemongrass ash for 3 days. Keeps for months. Tastes like shoes, expensive shoes. You laugh, but he's right. The chew is intense, the flavor complex. Salty, sweet, a little gamey, with an aftertaste like forest memories. Beside him, a young woman is packing sticky rice into bamboo tubes, krylan. She lines the inside with banana leaf, fills it with rice, black beans, and grated coconut, then seals the top with woven palm leaf before roasting it upright beside the fire. It's not just food, it's a thermos, a spoon, and a backpack snack all in one. Plus, when you crack the bamboo open later, the aroma hits like a tropical daydream. You try one. The grains are smoky, chewy, gently sweet. There's something comforting about it, like if a rice pudding had survival instincts. Nearby, a boy pours water into a clay-filtered travel jug, a kind of early portable cooler. Inside, tucked among leaves, is a bundle of something pickled. Fermented bamboo shoot with chili paste, he explains. You put a little in your rice. Clears your sinuses. Maybe your karma. Historians still argue whether the Khmer were the first in Southeast Asia to develop long-distance flavor preservation techniques, or whether they adapted these from earlier maritime cultures. But one thing's certain, these people were absolute wizards at making food that could last without refrigeration or hope. Your caravan host offers you a taste of salted duck egg wrapped in charred rice husk. It's been cured in clay and ash, then packed in straw for travel. The yolk is molten orange like sunset trapped in fat. Salty, rich, weirdly elegant. Eat this before a river crossing, he says. If you drown, at least your mouth is happy. You sip from a canteen of galangal lime water designed to fight heat stroke and evil spirits in equal measure. The lime is puckering, the galangal hits the back of your throat like a sharp whisper. Suddenly, you understand why people made it this far without quitting. Another woman unwraps a basket and reveals miniature rice cakes spiked with dried fish and wild garlic fried and packed in leaves. Crunchy at the start of the road, she says. Soft at the end. A metaphor maybe, a dental hazard definitely. There are even desserts on the go, a pouch of palm sugar fudge hardened into coin shapes, carried like currency by traders. One nibble gives you enough energy to argue about copper prices for hours, maybe days. You spot a group of young boys playing dice with dried tamarind pits while chewing sun-dried mango leather strips. Think fruit roll-ups, but dangerously tangy, like someone tried to weaponize vitamin C. They offer you one and laugh as your face contorts into a pucker. As you wander farther, you come across a crumbling way station once used by messengers. A corner still holds remnants of an ancient clay oven, its surface etched with hasty carvings, possibly inventory, possibly graffiti, possibly both. It's not hard to imagine a cook huddled here centuries ago, roasting rice flatbreads over coals, telling stories about crocodiles and lost spices. There's even a story, half myth, half field report of trader monks who traveled with dehydrated soup tablets. Ground fish paste, lemongrass garlic, and dried mushrooms pounded into discs, then rehydrated in river water. Khmer cup noodles, basically. Historians still argue whether these were truly common or just apocryphal stories told to make old monks seem cooler. A final traveler offers you a pouch of peppercorns soaked in rice wine, a kind of bite-sized stimulant meant to keep you alert on long marches. You take one and feel the world zing slightly brighter. Your tongue tingles. Your spine straightens. The stars overhead shift again, and you realize this isn't just sustenance. This is strategy. The Khmer didn't just build roads, they built edible lifelines. Every dried sausage, pickled shoot, and stuffed bamboo tube is a message from the past that says you keep going. Your belly full, your brain buzzing with pepper wine and sticky rice, you move on. You wonder if modern travel snacks will ever inspire this kind of poetry. Somehow, gas station jerky doesn't quite cut it. The road eventually dissolves into roots and vines swallowed by the lowland jungle where stone breaks and plants reclaim. But your feet know where they're going now, toward the rhythm of daily life, toward hearths that aren't royal or sacred or military, but plain and personal. You're heading into a Khmer village centuries old, and dinner's already underway. You catch your first scent long before you reach the house, grilled lemongrass chicken charred at the edges, dripping its juices onto hot stones. A dog barks lazily. Kids chase each other barefoot through a patch of banana trees. This is where flavors were born, not from dynasties or deities, but from daily improvisation. A woman waves you over, stirring something in a clay pot perched over open fire. Samlar Korko, she says. Literally stirred soup, and stirred it is again and again, with a long wooden paddle, as she drops in diced pumpkin green papaya snake beans, eggplant, and handfuls of basil. Into the broth goes a mix of ground toasted rice and fermented fish paste, prahok, the great love it or leave it of Cambodian cuisine. You brace for it. Prahok is unapologetic, pungent, creamy, deeply savory like anchovy paste that's taken a graduate course in funk. But here it melts into the soup like butter in a sauce, binding the vegetables in something rich and primal. You sip a ladleful. It's hot, sour herbal and alive with texture. There's crunch from green banana flower silkiness from taro root, and an occasional burst of unexpected heat when you bite a rogue chili. This, you realize, is the heart of home cooking, layered, unpolished, and deeply comforting. A nearby uncle is pounding something in a mortar the size of a baby elephant. You peer in, he grins. Kroong, he says. A spice paste ground daily from lemongrass, galangal, turmeric, kaffir, lime leaves, garlic, shallots. No two batches ever the same. Today's version will be rubbed onto grilled fish, tucked into stuffed gourds, and stirred into coconut curries. It's like our fingerprint, he says, but spicier. You bite into a grilled catfish stuffed with kroyung and banana leaf. The meat flakes apart, smoky and fragrant. A squeeze of lime cuts through the richness, and suddenly your mouth is conducting a symphony. You look up to thank him, but he's already busy pestering the children to bring more herbs from the garden. Behind the house, you find the source of half the dinner, a kitchen garden alive with holy basil, wild ginger chilies climbing gourds, and something that looks suspiciously like morning glory on steroids. Khmer villagers didn't rely solely on markets. Food grew steps from the fire. It still does. One woman shows you a basket of fried critters, crickets, grasshoppers, even tiny frogs lightly dusted in lime salt. Good for bones, she offers with a wink. You try a cricket. Crunchy, nutty, disturbingly tasty. Somewhere in the distance, a frog croaks judgmentally. There's a debate among historians about the origins of these insect-based snacks. Were they famine foods that became normalized, or treasured delicacies passed down for their protein punch? No consensus. But tonight in this village clearing, they're just snacks. The kids come running with something fresh, namban, chok rice noodles made from soaked ground rice fermented slightly, for tang, then pressed through a woven basket and boiled. They're topped with green fish curry, mildly spicy, loaded with lemongrass finger root and tender slivers of snakehead fish. You slurp. The noodles are soft and bouncy, the curry light, but addictive. And then they hand you a plate of herbs to pile on top: mint, basil, sawtooth, coriander, even banana blossom shreds. The dish transforms with every bite. In a quiet corner, two grandmothers sit on woven mats, shaping mung bean cakes, dyed soft yellow with turmeric and filled with sweetened mashed bean paste. They're steamed in banana leaves and smell faintly of coconut. You pop one in your mouth and immediately want 8 more. The outside is delicate, almost translucent. The inside is soft and nutty. This isn't just dessert, it's edible kindness. A rooster struts by. You wonder if he knows he's on borrowed time. Another dish arrives: grilled pork skewers glazed with palm sugar, garlic, and fish sauce. The char is hypnotic, the sugar caramelizing to brittle sweetness. They're served with fresh cucumber green papaya salad and sticky rice. You wrap it all in a lettuce leaf and take a bite. Sweet, sour, crunch, smoke. Somehow every single flavor quadrant gets high-fived in your mouth. By now the stars are scattered like grains of salt and the fire is low. A few villagers begin to hum an old song, something about river spirits and rice spirits, and why you should never insult either. You lie back and let the food settle warm in your belly like a story well told. You glance one last time at the kitchen corner: nothing stainless, no labels or timers. Just coals, clay pots, woven strainers, and hands that know what they're doing. Historians still argue whether village kitchens truly held on to ancient Khmer culinary traditions, or whether everything evolved too slowly to separate myth from method. But as the last spoonful of rice porridge with salted radish and fresh ginger touches your lips, you stop caring. This isn't about history anymore. This is about now, about here, about how a home tastes. And you lucky traveler just got invited to dinner. Your evening in the village dissolves gently into memory, like palm sugar in warm rice milk. And just when you think you've tasted everything there is to taste in this world of ancient Khmer flavors, someone beckons you to follow again, this time, not toward another fire, but toward the water. You pad quietly through dense undergrowth, your feet brushing past citronella and crushed lemongrass stalks. Ahead lies the lake, still and silver under the moonlight. Boats bob gently along the shore, and the smell of brackish shallows and freshwater reeds greets you like an old fisherman's handshake. This is Tonle Sap, the lifeblood of the Khmer and the original floating kitchen. The lake isn't just a place to fish, it's a seasonal god. Each year it expands and contracts, swelling to 5 times its size in the rainy season and shrinking like a tide pool in the dry. And with it moves the cuisine, flexible, seasonal, deeply tied to water rhythms. A wiry woman with arms like oars hoists you aboard a creaky wooden boat. Her kitchen, a single clay brazier, 2 baskets of spices, and whatever the lake gives that day. We call it Samlor Proher tonight, she says, herbal fish soup made from whatever's biting and whatever's green. She adds hunks of striped snakehead, soft, white, and meaty, along with wild water spinach, tender lotus stem, and sawtooth coriander. The broth is fragrant with roasted rice powder and crushed green peppercorns. We eat what swims to us, she says. Sometimes it's fish, sometimes frogs. Once an eel the size of your leg. That was a celebration. You sit quietly as the soup simmers. The lake laps at the side of the boat. Somewhere out in the dark, a frog belches as if to say, "I've seen things." She ladles the soup into a gourd and hands it over. The flavor is calming. silky, herbaceous, with a quiet punch of fishy umami beneath it all. It's like drinking a wet jungle through a warm hug. She smiles at your reaction and adds, "We also have amok tonight." Ah yes, amok tray, Cambodia's national dish born of the waterways and worshipped ever since. The recipe is deceptively simple. A custard of coconut milk, kroong fish, and eggs steamed in a banana leaf bowl until it quivers like a savory flan. But this version, it's made on water, and it has secrets. The fish was caught before dawn, marinated with herbs from floating gardens, and steamed with wild mushrooms gathered from half-submerged logs. The banana leaf bowl was folded with the precision of an origami master. You take a bite and time stops. Creamy, spicy, soft, herbal sweet, it hits every emotional register like a lullaby made edible. Historians still argue whether amok came from royal kitchens or lake boats. Some say it was ceremonial served to kings during water festivals. Others believe it was born right here on the boats, where everything has to be efficient, portable, and cookable over open flame. Either way, it tastes like memory. Nearby, a boy rows up with a smaller skiff. His basket holds pickled water. Mimosa stems a strange, crunchy vegetable with a slight zing, and a clay pot of fermented fish paste relish mam served with green mango slices. It's fiercely pungent, sour, and electric. Good with rice, he says. Bad with dates. And speaking of rice, a woman nearby is steaming a local variety that only grows during the flood season. Floating rice, a rare heirloom strain with stalks so tall they ride the rising lake. The grains are long, slightly chewy, with a subtle, nutty perfume. She pats some into rice cakes, grills them over charcoal, then brushes them with coconut cream and palm sugar. A dessert you'd swim for. She hands one over with a wink, careful, still hot. You sit on the edge of the boat, licking your fingers, watching the lake shimmer. Dragonflies hover like tiny helicopters. The moon paints the water with silver brushstrokes. Then from the houseboats beyond comes the clatter of chopping and the muffled hiss of oil in iron pans. More cooking, more life, more lake. You drift from boat to boat, sampling fried tiny river shrimp, their shells so thin they melt on your tongue, paired with pickled lotus root and slices of young banana. Someone hands you a mug of palm toddy sweet and faintly fermented, the Khmer version of a lakefront cocktail. It's refreshing, slightly fizzy, and suspiciously good at making the stars look prettier. You sip slowly, watching the fireflies dance, and wonder how a floating kitchen can feel more grounded than any palace. Even here, traditions are nuanced. Some families use grilled eel, others prefer turtle eggs when legal, which they usually weren't, and others ferment fish innards into paste and swear it cures anything from heartbreak to hangovers. Historians still argue about the health effects, the symbolism, and even the fermentation techniques, some of which may go back to pre-Angkorian times. But on this night, you don't argue. You just eat. As the wind shifts, the boat gently rocks. A sleepy child curls up next to a pot of cooled soup. An old man sings something wordless. Someone hands you a final nibble, a sweet taro dumpling wrapped in pandan leaf, the scent so floral, it might as well be perfume. You eat in silence, heart warm and belly full. The lake doesn't offer many comforts, but it offers enough. And just like that, the water starts to recede, not the lake itself, but your dream of it. The flavors blur, the lights dim, the boat vanishes into mist. You are still afloat, and just a little in love. When you wake, or maybe when you don't, you're no longer on the water. The gentle rock of the lake has been replaced by the rustle of jungle leaves, thick and waxy, brushing past your shoulders. The light here is softer, filtered through tall palms and jackfruit trees mottled like old parchment. You're deep in the forest now, in one of the highland communities that lived on the fringes of the Angkorian Empire. These people weren't builders of stone temples or keepers of royal courts. They were cultivators of roots, harvesters of bark, quiet innovators of survival cuisine. You step over a tangle of vines and into a clearing where smoke rises from a makeshift kitchen, a ring of rocks, a pot balanced above coals, and a woman slicing something green and spiral. Rattan shoots. Bitter, chewy, often astringent unless you know how to cook them. She does. In the pot goes a concoction of rattan, wild ginger, slivered river fish, fermented bamboo shoots, and chili paste so hot it could write your last words. But she balances it with a fistful of toasted rice powder and shredded unripe papaya. Jungle sour soup, she mutters. Best with sticky rice. And with that, she hands you a bundle of rice steamed inside bamboo, split open with a machete. You sit on a fallen log, spooning sour, spicy forest broth into your mouth, and it's like tasting camouflage. Green, sharp, smoky, tangy. You don't recognize half the ingredients, but every spoonful makes you feel oddly more awake and maybe just a little more animal. Nearby, an elder leans over a stone mortar, grinding something that smells oddly floral. It's sach ko on grilled beef marinated in crushed makrut, lime leaves, galangal, and honey. She skewers it onto lengths of lemongrass stalks, lays it over a fire, and fans the smoke with a palm leaf. You watch as the beef chars, slowly blackening at the edges, the scent of caramelizing sugar mixing with smoke and wild lime. You take a bite. The outside is crispy, nearly burnt. The inside is tender, rich, and humming with citrus and wood. It's primitive, in the best way. And there's dessert, of course, though you wouldn't guess it by looking. A sticky lump of black glutinous rice steamed with sweet potato and coconut cream, wrapped tightly in banana leaf. It's chewy, dense, and just shy of overcooked, but it sticks to your ribs and maybe your soul too. Here in the highlands, food is a quiet triumph. Foraging isn't a trend, it's a necessity. People know which mushroom will lull you to sleep, which nut to grind into flour, and which berries absolutely not to touch unless you want your dreams to get very colorful. There's an ongoing scholarly debate about whether these communities influenced Angkorian cuisine or whether they were insulated from it. Some argue they preserved pre-Angkorian foodways recipes and ingredients older than temples carried forward by oral tradition and sheer stubbornness. Others think it's more of a parallel evolution, same land, different paths. Either way, their knowledge runs deep. A young boy walks past holding what looks like a pile of moss on a plate. It's actually ant larvae mixed with crushed peanuts and toasted rice served with betel leaves for wrapping. You hesitate. He shrugs. Good crunch. And it is. Once you get past the idea of eating a future colony, lunch shifts into afternoon tea, if you can call it that. Someone brews a drink from lemongrass pandan leaf and toasted rice steeped in hot water until it smells like rain and cookies. Another pot bubbles with something darker, wild mushroom broth said to cure colds, snakebite, and broken hearts. You sip. Earthy, bitter, strangely soothing. A girl brings over thin slices of dried buffalo meat, sun-cured and rubbed with galangal and salt, then crisped over flame. It's chewy like jerky with a philosophy degree. You gnaw slowly, grateful for the effort. This isn't grab-and-go cuisine. This is make and hope the bears don't steal it cooking. You start to notice how nothing is wasted. Banana trunks are shredded into fiber. Coconut shells become bowls. The inner bark of certain trees is soaked and boiled into broth. Even charcoal from last night's fire finds new life used to smoke dry herbs or as toothpaste. Yes, charcoal toothpaste. Your ancestors were chewing on detox long before it showed up in your Instagram ads. There's a kind of poetry in this place. Not flashy, not polished, but you see it in the way the children sit silently while elders cook, or the way someone casually tosses a handful of crushed wild chili into a pot and says that'll keep the ghosts away. Practical and mystical side by side. The sun begins to dip below the treetops, casting the forest in amber. The kitchen is winding down the fire, now embers. A final dish arrives, banana blossom salad shredded and tossed with lime fish sauce, sugar, crushed peanuts, garlic, and thinly sliced shallots. It's fresh, bright, and crunchy, like a palate cleanser for the jungle. And as you lean back against a mossy stone, listening to the evening insects chirp and watching the shadows grow long, you realize something: this isn't just cooking, it's remembering. Historians may never fully agree on what the true Khmer cuisine was. Royal records were spotty, recipes weren't written down, and when empires fall, spices scatter. But here in the highlands, you feel something real, something older than history books, something that still tastes like home. You fall asleep to the sound of crickets, those persistent forest violinists, and wake somewhere new again, this time in the heart of a dry season rice field, cracked and sun-bleached golden in the morning light. You're no longer in the highlands or by the lake. You're in the flatlands now, the true pantry of the Khmer world, where rice rules and the sun doesn't negotiate. You walk barefoot across a network of raised dikes, your toes brushing over rice husks and dry grass. All around fields stretch endlessly dotted with scarecrows and low-lying granaries. The heat clings to you like wet cloth, and your stomach rumbles with anticipation. Out here, food is work, not poetry, but it's honest and it's delicious. A group of women laughing sun-hatted hands dyed with turmeric are pounding something in large mortars. You recognize the rhythmic thud-thud of namban chok in the making fermented rice noodles soft and tangy, a street food staple that's been around since Angkor was a toddler. There's some scholarly debate over whether these noodles originated with Indian influence or were independently developed, since they resemble idiyappam in shape and concept. But what's clear is this: they've been Khmerified. The fermentation gives them a subtle sourness, a complexity, and you're about to find out why they're a national obsession. You sit under a shade canopy made of torn tarps and palm leaves. Someone sets a woven tray in front of you. The noodles are topped with a ladle of green fish gravy, a blend of fermented fish paste, coconut milk, lemongrass, turmeric finger root, and fresh catfish that's been pounded into oblivion. But then comes the real fun, the toppings. A riot of textures: shaved banana blossom, shredded cucumber water, lily stems, crunchy bean sprouts, Thai basil, mint, culantro, and long beans. You're instructed to pile them high, stir it like you mean it, and slurp as loudly as you dare. You do. And it's glorious, a bowl of sunshine with a hint of swamp. Around you, farmers eat with one hand, fan themselves with the other. A girl brings you a side of grilled river fish, split open and stuffed with lemongrass and mackroot lime leaves, then rubbed with garlic and roasted over coals. It flakes apart like warm paper. A boy hands you kroyung paste to sniff, this one heavy on lemongrass and galangal. Good for soups, he says. Also mosquito bites. You suspect he's joking until you see someone smear a dab on their arm and grin. And then the rice. Not just any rice. Phi Chaka Rum Duol, a fragrant jasmine-like variety indigenous to Cambodia, prized for its floral aroma and soft texture. It's been freshly harvested, steamed in a massive bamboo basket. A woman pats a mound of it into a tight dome and smacks the top with pride. This one's from my mother's plot. Rice here is more than food. It's memory, ceremony, economy. It's harvested by hand, threshed by foot, winnowed by air. Every grain carries a season, a storm, a lullaby sung to scare away birds. You spoon up the rice with corco, a thick stew of whatever vegetables the field gives: pumpkin, green papaya, snake beans, taro, young jackfruit, and bitter melon, all swimming in a base of fermented fish paste and toasted rice powder. It's hearty, earthy, and gently bitter, like the voice of a grandmother who's lived through 12 monsoons and still grows her own chilies. For dessert, palm sugar fudge, sticky, soft, and grainy, wrapped in waxy leaves and kept cool under a clay pot. There's also roasted mung bean cakes, dry and powdery, the kind you eat slowly so you don't choke. You cough once, and someone hands you a cup of iced pandan tea, sweet and fragrant. The day passes slowly, like honey dripping from a spoon. You wander through drying racks stacked with Prahok fermented fish paste in various stages of pungency. Some of it's mashed into jars with chilies and garlic, some formed into bricks, some simply sunning itself like lizards. You ask how long it takes to ferment. Depends how brave you are, someone says. 3 weeks for flavor, 6 months for legend. Historians still argue whether Prahok was always this central, or whether it grew in importance post-Angkor. Some claim it replaced salt in the ancient diet. Others say it served more spiritual than culinary roles used in offerings and rituals. Regardless, it defines Khmer flavor: funky, bold, necessary. You even try a Prahok pizza flatbread topped with the stuff plus slivers of green mango and shredded dried fish. You're pretty sure you're hallucinating by this point, but it tastes oddly sophisticated, like a Roman anchovy pie filtered through jungle dreams. The sun begins to dip, casting everything in gold. You join a small group near a clay oven, watching as someone bakes Nam Pang Cambodian baguettes, a colonial relic turned local treasure. You split one open and stuff it with a handful of shredded pork, pickled carrot cucumber, and a swipe of chili mayo. Yes, it's fusion. No, it's not wrong. You end the day with a bowl of sweet corn pudding, fresh corn simmered in coconut milk with just a pinch of salt and sugar. Comfort food of the fields. It tastes like childhood and sweat and monsoon season, even if you've never lived here. A breeze rises, lifting the smell of hay and charred lemongrass. The fields go quiet. The mortars are silent. Even the rice husks seem to pause. You lie down in the grass, belly full and brain foggy. The sky is pale lavender. The cows are heading home. And just before you drift off, someone presses a ball of sticky rice roasted in bamboo into your palm. For breakfast, they whisper. But you know you'll eat it before morning. You wake to the scent of smoke and citrus, your breakfast rice ball still warm in your hand, slightly singed from the bamboo. You bite into it before you've even opened both eyes. Inside the sticky rice is a hidden core of mung bean paste and palm sugar, molten and nutty. You blink slowly, realizing that flavor just rewrote your definition of breakfast. This morning, you're at a village crossroads, somewhere between rice fields, distant jungle, and the winding arms of the Mekong River. This is where markets bloom like wildflowers. Not the kind with neat aisles and branded signs, but a chaotic woven thatch bazaar where food comes alive before it's cooked. You walk through it, dodging baskets of green mangoes, vats of live eels, pyramids of dried shrimp. The air hums with voices haggling over kroung paste ratios, gossip about the neighbor's chickens, and mild panic over an escaped lizard that may or may not be someone's lunch. This is where Khmer cuisine shows off its everyday genius street snacks, family staples, and culinary improvisation that could make a Michelin chef weep quietly into his foam reduction. You try Num Croc First small coconut rice cakes cooked in an iron pan, crisp outside, molten and custardy inside. The vendor sprinkles them with chopped scallions and a pinch of black pepper. You pop one into your mouth. It's hot enough to make your eyebrows sweat, but also sweet, salty, and entirely addictive. Then comes Kraylin's sticky rice, black beans, and coconut milk roasted in bamboo tubes until it becomes a smoky, self-contained dessert sausage. You need a knife to crack it open, or teeth if you're feeling primal. You choose teeth. No regrets. There's a basket of Sachko Jakak 2 beef skewers marinated in coconut milk, palm sugar, and crushed peanuts grilled over open flame and served with pickled veggies. You chew savor and try not to cry when the last skewer disappears. Nearby, an old man hawks something wrapped in banana leaf. You buy it because that's the rule here. Banana leaf equals mystery. Inside, amok tray, but this time not the royal moose-like version. This is the peasant's amok firm river fish, steamed with kroung egg and coconut cream, folded into a rustic, herb-heavy loaf. It's less delicate, more earthy, more honest. Historians still argue whether amok was really a daily dish or just ceremonial fare. Some say its prevalence today is shaped by modern tourism and nostalgia. Others point to old temple carvings showing similar fish preparations. Either way, what you're eating now feels realer than any museum. You sip on a sugar palm juice, cool, slightly fermented, and definitely on the edge of turning into something stronger. It's said to be good for digestion, bad for your balance. You take another sip. A woman offers you Namply AI glutinous rice balls filled with melted palm sugar rolled in grated coconut. They burst in your mouth like sweet lava. She smiles and says, "We eat these when people leave for long journeys." Sweet on the outside, fire in the heart. You keep walking past rows of dried fish jerky, past giant metal pots, bubbling with bobor rice porridge rich with pork preserved egg or whatever's left in the fridge. A boy stirs his with a chopstick and adds a spoonful of prahok for kick. Bold move. Lunch blurs into early afternoon, and you're invited into someone's house for a rest. Inside, a mother is preparing kankep baob stuffed frogs. You freeze. She laughs. Only the big ones. We fill them with pork and lemongrass. You watch fascinated as she wraps the frogs in banana leaf and grills them slowly until the skin is crisp and the filling juicy. You eat one with a small bowl of sour mango salad and realize it's disturbingly delicious, like a pork dumpling that once had legs. For a moment, you drift into a daze. The food, the heat, the low murmur of the market, all of it blurs. You think of how these dishes survive without recipe cards, without glossy photos, without written instruction. Just memory hands, repetition. Someone's mother teaching someone's daughter, over and over, for centuries. Outside, a group is preparing for a neighborhood celebration. Flags go up, tables appear. Platters of Nam Ansam sticky rice and banana wrapped in banana leaf are steamed and stacked like offerings. There's red curry with snails, banana flour fritters, and a massive wok filled with chay kiti's vegetables, stir-fried in coconut cream until they melt into silk. You help light a few lanterns. You sip something fizzy and sweet from a plastic bag with a straw. And then, because it feels right, you pick up another handful of those coconut rice cakes and wander back toward the edge of the market. It's getting late. Smoke from the grills curls upward like ghost stories. Kids are chasing each other with skewers of sticky pork. A dog naps under a table next to a bowl of pickled green mango and chili salt. And you sit down on the low wooden step of someone's porch. Lick the coconut oil from your fingers and exhale. Here on the edge of the ordinary, you've tasted something extraordinary. Not royal, not rare, but the kind of food that refuses to disappear. You wake up swaddled in the scent of smoke, lemongrass, and wet earth. Morning has slipped into something more golden, and you realize you're lying on a woven mat beneath a house on stilts. Roosters crow. Somewhere nearby, someone is cracking coconuts with alarming enthusiasm. A child giggles in the distance, possibly because you're still drooling slightly from last night's coconut cakes. Today, you're heading east toward the forested borderlands, where wild ingredients rule and cooking is part foraging, part wizardry. This is where Khmer food grows feral. It listens to the trees. It obeys the weather. It changes with every hill, every rainfall, and sometimes every hour. You're with a foraging party, 3 women in wide-brimmed hats, 2 teenage boys carrying baskets, and one incredibly quiet grandmother who seems to know the name of every root, leaf, and vine. She points with a stick at a patch of shady undergrowth, and suddenly you're gathering wild mushrooms, betel leaves, roselle stems, and the curled tips of neem branches. Somewhere along the way, someone finds a termite mound. The group cheers. You are understandably less enthusiastic. But this isn't a prank. Termite eggs, when collected properly, are a delicacy. They're sautéed with shallots and herbs, then folded into omelets or mixed into dipping sauces. You learn this the way all wisdom is passed down in the forest, with laughter and peer pressure. You return to a forest clearing where lunch is already in motion. There's a makeshift grill made from bamboo poles. Fish caught from a nearby stream are skewered and roasting. They're coated in crushed rattan shoots and tamarind leaves, giving them a slightly sour, woody aroma. In a pot balanced over coals, a sour soup bubbles samlar machu made with smoked fish, wild eggplants, green tamarind pods, and the tips of mango leaves. The broth is clear but electric, a wake-up call for your palate. There's a tang that creeps in behind your teeth and settles comfortably. Historians still argue whether samlar machu began as a royal preparation or was always the clever invention of farmers trying to stretch river catch into family-sized meals. Some even debate its pre-Angkor origins, pointing to oral traditions rather than written recipes. While the soup simmers, someone sets out a basket of fermented bamboo shoots. They smell aggressive, but taste bright sour and strangely addictive. They're paired with grilled, sticky rice balls dipped in roasted sesame and honey. You pop one in your mouth and instantly feel like someone's woodland pet. Then comes the showstopper ant egg salad. You don't protest. Not anymore. The salad is herbaceous chopped lemongrass, sawtooth, coriander, banana flower bird's eye chili, and it's topped with crunchy white ant eggs that burst like little beads of sour fat. It's floral, citrusy, and weirdly elegant. You sip on a drink made from roasted corn silk, which tastes like campfire tea. Someone pulls out a handful of wild red jasmine rice, colored not by sauce, but by nature. It's steamed in banana leaf and served alongside a wild boar curry, heady with star anise cloves and charred shallot. For dessert, there's sticky rice cooked inside a pumpkin, the center filled with coconut custard so silky it wobbles at the sight of a spoon. You eat it with your fingers and regret nothing. The forest hushes after lunch. The wind speaks only in leaf language. You lie back and stare at the canopy above the filtered green light playing across your eyelids. A squirrel scolds you from a branch. You apologize, unsure for what, but it feels appropriate. As the sun begins to lower, your group prepares a few takeaways. One woman wraps pickled wild mango in banana leaf. Another packs a small jar of jungle honey. Grandmother, without a word, tucks a charred rattan shoot into your hand. Boil it, she mutters, when your body feels too warm. You nod solemnly like someone who might one day remember what that means. As you leave the forest, you cross a field of feral lemongrass. It grows here like weeds waving in the breeze, flavoring the air itself. You pass a tree bearing santal fruit, the kind that's both sweet and sour eaten, dipped in salt, sugar, and chili. You pick one bite in and pucker instantly. Nature knows how to mess with you. You pause at the edge of the forest, turning back for one last look. The forest does not wave goodbye. It doesn't need to. You've eaten its secrets, drunk its broth, and carried its flavors inside you now. In this forgotten corner of Cambodia, you've learned something. Khmer cuisine is not static. It's alive, seasonal, deeply regional, and laced with mystery. It's built on what can be gathered, what can be fermented, and what can be loved despite its strangeness. And if you ever forget what the jungle tastes like, just chew on a bit of rattan and wait for the fireflies. You awaken on the edge of water. Not the sea, but a sprawling lake so vast and flat that the horizon seems to tremble with heat. This is Tonle Sap, the pulsing, breathing heart of Cambodia's inland fisheries. A body of water so dynamic, it expands and contracts like a living lung, swallowing villages in the wet season and retreating to reveal cracked earth in the dry. Your boat is little more than a plank with ambition. It rocks gently beneath your feet as you're handed a bowl of rice porridge and pickled snakehead fish for breakfast. The porridge is silken and salty, the fish assertive, and watching you with one dried eye from the edge of the bowl. You nod respectfully and dig in. Today, you're exploring the cuisine of Cambodia's floating communities, those whose lives are built entirely on water. Here, cooking is an exercise in balance between wet and dry, fresh and fermented survival and indulgence. You float past houses built on stilts, then houses built on boats, then entire floating schools and temples. From every window wafts the scent of grilled fish, tamarind broth, fermented crab paste, or on a good day, banana blossom fritters fried until they sing with crunch. You dock beside a house where lunch is being prepared. The kitchen is no more than a wooden platform, a single charcoal stove, and a collection of battered clay pots. What's inside those pots? Secrets and steam. There's samlor prahal, a rich fish soup with coconut milk, prahok finger root, and holy basil. It's ladled over rice noodles and eaten with a side of pickled morning glory. The balance is haunting, creamy, funky, herbal, salty, a flavor roadmap, drawn with zero margin for error. Then comes smoked catfish mashed with green chili and lemongrass pounded into a paste, and eaten with raw vegetables plucked from a nearby raft garden. It's not fancy, but it hits like culinary jazz, unexpected notes, spicy solos. You learn about fermented fish treks, entire families who migrate across the lake, hauling clay jars of mom, a deeply aged fish sauce/condiment, to trade in villages before the monsoon arrives. This stuff is legendary, thick, umami-rich, and capable of flavoring an entire meal with a single spoonful. Historians still argue whether Khmer fish preservation techniques influenced early Southeast Asian trade routes, or if the reverse happened. Some believe ancient Khmer pickling jars even made their way into imperial Chinese records. But no one agrees on the recipes, because here they're never written down. They're tasted, adjusted, and tasted again. For a break, you sip iced lotus seed tea, which feels like drinking quiet itself. A girl offers you grilled sticky rice with black sesame and banana wrapped tightly in lotus leaf. You thank her, bite in, and get a whiff of the lake's breath, muddy, mineral rich, and oddly comforting. Someone brings over tray omelette, tiny sun-dried fish that crunch like crackers and are eaten by the handful with lime juice and palm sugar. They're addictive. You don't stop. A toddler stares at you judgmental. You offer him one. He declines. Maybe it's a texture thing. Evening slides in, slowly golden and soft. Lights flicker to life, tiny solar lamps and oil lanterns. Dinner is being prepared on almost every floating home. You drift through the aroma like a dream: ginger and chili fermented crab and coconut cream, fried garlic river, mint torch ginger. You dock again, just in time for a floating feast. The community has come together to celebrate the return of the high water. Platters are laid out on mats, stuffed gourami rice with pickled eggplant, and caramelized pork green papaya salad with prahok dressing, and oddly enough, water lily stem salad, which crackles when you chew it. You help light candles in floating bowls made from banana leaf and marigold petals. They're set adrift, carrying prayers and smoke across the dark surface. You set one free yourself. You don't speak Khmer, but your wish is clear: may these flavors never vanish. After dessert, steamed pumpkin custard with grated coconut, you lie back in the boat, eyes skyward. The stars are older than Angkor. The water beneath you murmurs with ancient stories. You think of everything you've tasted, every surprise, every oddity you were sure you wouldn't like, but did. Because that's the magic of lost Khmer cuisine. It hides in plain sight, in floating markets, in backyard grills, in the memory of a grandmother, in the hands of a cook who doesn't own a cookbook. It refuses to vanish. It just waits. And now it's inside you. The boat rocks gently beneath you as the last lanterns flicker out. You stretch your legs, feel the soft night breeze on your skin, and let the weight of the day drift off your shoulders like smoke from a dying fire. You think back to all the flavors you've discovered: the creamy, the fermented, the fiery, the strange. Every bite you took was a step back through time into a Cambodia few people get to taste. And yet those flavors still linger in village kitchens, floating homes, and forest clearings passed hand to hand like sacred flame. Your breath slows. The stars above blur softly, and the world narrows to the sound of water lapping gently beneath your boat. You feel the warmth of sticky rice still clinging to your fingertips. Somewhere a nightbird calls. Somewhere else a pot simmers slowly in the dark. You're full not just of food, but of stories. Of saffron broth and banana leaves. Of ancient hands pounding spice pastes by moonlight. Of fish cooked without clocks. Of soups seasoned with memory. And as your eyes grow heavier, you feel yourself drifting not away from these tastes, but deeper into them, into the hush, into the rhythm, into the rich, quiet afterglow of Khmer cuisine. Sleep comes slowly, kindly, and when it does, it tastes just a little like coconut milk and tamarind.